What is it that destroys a marriage? Larry Bilotta is a relationship mechanic, and he's here with me today at Live on Purpose TV. So, folks, I've got Larry Bilotta with me today. Larry was a guest on my podcast, Live on Purpose Radio, and I found you, Larry, because of the amazing work that you're doing in the field of relationships, and particularly marriage. And you're one of those guys that actually believes in it and have had enough experience in your own life and as you've worked with your clients to learn some things about it. You've identified...
Yeah, a lot to do with being married 43 years to the same woman.
Yes, most of which was just a completely blissful experience for you, right?
No.
That's not how you described it to me before.
That's right. It was not a blissful experience. It was a very, very painful 27 years of marriage hell is what it was. And when you go to hell to learn, you really learn a lot, because when you're learning in pain, and the pain keeps you motivated to keep on learning. And so that's why going to hell is a really productive thing to do. Going to college, not so productive, because it's not hell. What made the hell is Marcia and I are completely opposite people, and we couldn't leave each other because of our programming. We're both programmed to stay married and miserable, and that literally kept us together. But the 28th year, I fell in love with her because I finally realized a bunch of things that I now teach in my courses, that the pain isn't out there, the pain is in here. And when you finally realize the pain is in here, it's not out there, that changes the landscape of the way you see marriage. But that's not the way most people see it. Most people see the pain is outside. I need to leave whatever's out there and go away. And that's just not true. Your pain is in here, and you take the pain to the next relationship. That's the reason why there's, second and third and fourth marriages, because going away doesn't solve the problem.
Right.
So
you said that you stayed married and stayed miserable. That was your programming. I think part of what I've learned from you, Larry, and as we've had our previous conversations, is that you can stay married. You don't have to stay miserable.
That's right. You can stay married and not stay miserable. But the reason I stayed married and miserable for those 27 years is because I was programmed by a couple who stayed married and miserable, and her parents stayed married and miserable. And remember that's a part of the 50s and 60s value system. You stay married, you stay unhappy, you stay married no matter what. And so that's how we were both programmed. So we couldn't get away. The programming held us in place. Really amazing, powerful thing. That's why when your parents divorce, you're actually programmed to divorce yourself. You run into a program, you do what your parents did.
Right.
That's how that
right
works.
Or wrong. It's just what we're programmed or conditioned to see as the solution, I guess.
That's right. And it's built into you. It's very unconscious. It's subconscious. It's all in the subconscious mind, which ultimately runs our lives. Our subconscious mind gets us to do everything we do. Our conscious mind is what we use to tell the story of why we're doing what we're doing. But it's not the reason. Our conscious mind is not the reason we're doing what we're doing. We don't consciously live. We live on our subconscious mind, where all our instructions are. And so that's what programming is. Programming is the instructions that are in the subconscious mind that cause you to do in your current day life. So that's the reason why marriages, they fall apart, because they're programmed to fall apart. They're programmed to... in fact, if we think about it simply, I say this phrase to people, and it's very, very difficult to hear it if you're not in the middle of a marriage problem. But men are programmed to treat their wives the way their fathers treated their mothers in the first 10 years. So that's very hard for a man to hear. Very hard for a woman to hear is women are programmed to treat their husbands the way their mothers treated their fathers in the first 10 years. Now, people like to forget about their past. I've talked to lots of couples that don't even remember their past. And when they marry, they don't even talk about their past as if it didn't exist. But what they don't realize is the instructions of the first 10 years are recorded, just like we record a vinyl record. It's recorded. The imprint is there. It's put in the subconscious mind, and it's still there today. It's still operating. It's still running, and it's still going to turn on and run your life if you don't become aware that it's there. So that's why it's so important to talk about your first 10 years. Like, what happened to me? Why did it happen to me? You gotta share that. If you're in a marriage, you gotta talk about it. And most of the couples I talked to over the years, they've never thought childhood was anything. They just thought it was a past memory. It is not. It is a recording, and it's a live real-time set of instructions that are running your adult life today. And boy, it's hard to hear that. Boy,
Wow.
it's hard to hear that.
I can see why you might get some resistance for that.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
what you're talking about, Larry, is it's an intensive training program that we go through and might not even notice that we've been through it. You said subconscious. Right. It's below our awareness that this has happened.
Yes.
You're saying it has a very profound impact on how we're operating in our relationships right now, today.
So I have an analogy I call it the marriage tornado, and there's the top of the tornado that spins slowly, and you think, we really don't have a marriage problem. It's not really that bad. And then the tornado tightens up in the middle, and now the problems are getting to be more severe, but you think it's just a phase he or she is going through. And you think, well, it's going to go away. Well, those are all wrong interpretations, because the bottom of the tornado is the fastest spin and the most destructive spin, and that's the place where the chaos of childhood really comes for you. It comes for the marriage, and it really takes out the weakest person of the couple. The weakest person is the one who has the instructions that when you're having troubles, run away. And so whoever is the runaway instruction person, that's the person who leaves first. It's the man leaves first. If it's a woman, the woman leaves first. And what that leaves is the stayer. The stayer stays, the leaver leaves. And who are the leavers? The leavers are people who are programmed to leave. And the people who stay are the people who believe in family, and they have these values in them that just say, I just have to have my family. You know, they end up looking like the righteous one, and the leaver looks like the bad one. And it's none of that. It's none of that. We're just programmed to be in our marriages the way we were programmed in our childhood to have a marriage. So if your father had a hot temper, you're literally programmed to handle troubles with a hot temper, blowing up. If you're a shutdown person, if you're programmed by your father or mother to shut down emotionally, that's what you're going to do. You're going to shut down. Little conflict comes, bang, you're just out of it. And there's nothing left. You can't talk about it anymore because the program says you can't talk about it anymore. You got to shut down. And so we come in to the marriage and we don't know anything about these instructions. But the reason they're called programs is just because a program is pre-recorded, and it's always going to be the same every time you play it, right? That's why it's called a program. But think of it as, a program or an instruction. And so there's an instruction inside of how do I handle a conflict? Here's how you handle a conflict, right there in your subconscious. And the subconscious mind comes and goes, boom, here it is. This is what you have to do. This is how loud you have to talk. This is how mean you have to be. This is how forceful. This is how you need to be scared, back off. Whatever the instruction is, that came from those first 10 years. And scientists even know that the synaptic connections of the brain are actually forming in those first 10 years. They're literally forming and being imprinted, 550,000, synaptic connections in a day, just amazing, the science behind it. But that's what we don't want to think about that. We don't want to think that it's there. We don't want to think that it's real. I've talked to so many people. I've done over 1,600 one-hour interviews, and I've got the patterns from these people. Right. And these people are all in troubled marriages that I'm talking to. And so the patterns are over and over and over again. And when you see and hear these real stories, you see like, wow, okay, so the chaos kid is a real thing. That's what I call it, the chaos kid. And what makes a chaos kid is abandonment, abuse, and neglect. Some form of some combination of those three things. And that I've even created a little chaos to purpose scale. The chaos to purpose scale is you're raised at the purpose side, where your parents actually raise you to be, have values, have morals, have standards, loyalty, faithfulness. Those are standards that come to you in childhood. If you have those, when you go into your marriage, that's what you fall back to. Mm-hmm. Loyalty, standards, this is the way it needs to be. This is the way we do it around here. And if you are raised in a childhood chaos, I call that 50 to 0 on the scale, then you have abandonment, some form of it, some form of abandonment, physical or emotional, some form of abuse, physical or emotional, or some form of neglect, physical or emotional. So physical and emotional abandonment, physical, emotional abuse, physical, emotional neglect. Look at the combinations you can produce in a person. Oh, yeah. And so what happens is that person, goes through their 20s or they marry in their 30s or whatever. What happens is the intimate marriage begins, the marriage, the license, so you get a marriage license, and then what happens is the childhood programming comes to that person, to both people. And then they go through troubles in life troubles, money troubles, relationship troubles, health troubles, whatever the troubles are. When those troubles start spinning, that's the marriage tornado. It starts spinning their life, and just what happens now? The instructions come from the subconscious that here's how to handle this trouble. Right. And it turns out to be just like Dad did, or just like Mom did. Exactly like it. And we hate that, because now it's like, well, I don't have free will. I got to do what my mother says. I got to do what my father did. Yeah, you do. Until you become really aware, until you actually talk about what happened to you together, you're not going to know. You're going to pretend it never happened. You're like, that past is past. No, past is not past. It's still with you.
Still
stored
there.
in your subconscious mind, just like a record. And the record's got an imprint. You put the record on the player, kaboom, it all plays. And that's exactly how marriages are. You know, I always say I can predict with quite a bit of accuracy how long a marriage is going to last and how it's going to collapse. And how do I do that? Just by knowing what Mom and Dad did. That's pretty simple. You know? If I know Mom was depressed throughout the daughter's childhood, well, what do I now know? I know that daughter is going to be getting depressed. Why? Because the thoughts of the mother are going to now become the thoughts of the daughter. Well, that's pretty simple. You know, if the father was a cheat, he had affairs on his wife, and that little boy is getting that energy of cheating and disloyalty, guess what he's going to do? He's going to attract women like a magnet, and he's not even going to know how he does it. Why? Because he's programmed to be disloyal. And that's stored in the childhood. We can find that out before the marriage, but nobody wants to know that. Why? Because we don't want to think we have no free will. We don't want to believe that. Like, I want to believe that I'm free to choose whatever I want to choose. I want to be who I want to be, and I just make my choices, and I'm my own person. No, you're not. You're not your own person. You know, just thousands of people just prove it over and over again. It's not after you've seen the patterns enough, you know it's not going to be a surprise. This is the way we are. Here's an amazing statistic, Paul. The amazing statistic, I've had hundreds of people in my Environment Changer program, and I've not had one woman married to a man from a good home. And what a good home is a mom and dad who stay married, who enjoy each other, and they teach the kids a value system and talk to the kids and teach the kids. So not one guy from that home, not one woman from that home. No good homes. So every single person who goes through my program is married to a person from a chaos home. Every single time. No exceptions.
Wow.
Like you grow up in a good home with mom and dad that enjoy each other and give you values and purpose and standards and morals. You don't have a midlife crisis. You just don't have it. Why? Because it's not in the subconscious mind.
Larry, you've done a nice job identifying what can destroy a marriage. And in your experience, this is fairly predictable stuff. I think I know you well enough to know also that there is some element of choice that comes when you are aware of this and you're willing to do something differently about it. We'll handle that in another video. But what I'm hearing, I think one of the main messages I'm hearing here is to not be afraid of this dynamic. Let's acknowledge it. Let's recognize that this is happening, that there is some programming and training that has occurred. And it's actually okay to take a look at that and acknowledge it.
Yes, and there's a way to look at it. And we'll talk about that in the next installment. And Paul, I have a thing here. This is my Chaos to Purpose scale.
Oh, yes.
This is available to people. So I want to read some words off the Chaos to Purpose scale to illustrate good home programming and troubled home programming. If we look at what happens in a purpose home, you get morals, intelligence, social graces, listening skills, you control your emotions, you feel secure, you have self-confidence, and you have a sense of humor. Now, doesn't that sound good?
That sounds great. Good. Sign me up.
That's what comes from great parents. Now, what happens with troubled parents? With troubled parents, now, I have few morals, I have cruelty, I'm insensitive, I have chaotic emotions, I'm self-absorbed, I feel insecure, I feel uncertain, and in terms of humor, I feel sarcastic. See, all those positives now turn into all these negatives. And that's what, and then there's a step-by-step look at what happens. And so what people do with that scale is they look at it and they start remembering their childhood. They say, oh, gee, my dad this and my mom this. And they start putting the stories together. And that's what the Chaos Purpose Scale was for, to get people to start remembering the stories of childhood. And what is the value of that? When we can start talking about the stories themselves, the stories, their power in our subconscious mind actually gets weaker. What makes them stronger is complete ignorance, complete darkness. That's what makes them really strong. But they get weaker the more you shine light on them, the more you talk about them, especially talk together. When husband and wife start to talk about their childhood stories together, wow, that's an amazing relief to the marriage and the pressure of these dark messages.
I love it.
So that's really that's our relief statement there.
Thank you, Larry, for sharing that. And folks, we'll put a link in the description down below where you can link to that Chaos to Purpose scale and see exactly what Larry's talking about there. We'll put that in the description. Okay. Excellent.
Thanks, Paul.
I think that's a wrap on the first one. You feel good about that?
Yeah.
Awesome.
You got the basics down.
You know, some of that stuff surprised me when I first heard it, but it makes total sense, doesn't it? If you've benefited from this today, please share it.